Okay, well, it's according to Verizon, it's 10 o'clock. Welcome everyone to the first virtual conference of the GVATA of Georgia. We appreciate everybody coming in here. Right now, it looks like we have 152 participants. So without any further ado, our first speaker today is going to be Miss Cecily Gunter. And she's going to share some things that she does in her classroom, and we'll get to rocking.
Thank you, Walt. Can y'all hear me okay? Yes. Okay, cool. Yeah, so I'm Cecily Gunter. I teach at Newton College and Career Academy, and I do vet science and animal science. The thing I was going to share about is that I use the Cornell curriculum, and I know a few of you have used it in the past too, but they just came out with a new curriculum this last year, and so I used it this last year with it. If you use the old version, you can find the old version online, and you don't have to pay for the old version, but it's not nearly as much as the new version is. The new version, when you print it all out, it's like 6 3-inch binders or something. I mean, it's ridiculous. And it comes with PowerPoints, it comes with worksheets, it comes with anything that you could ever want for vet science. There's no way that you could teach it all in 1 year. Is that much. I pulled stuff like different sections for it for using in animal science as well. And it's really priced well. It's only 150 bucks and it comes with everything. I'll send out the link for it if anyone's interested in it. Let's see. Other cool things about it is that it aligns with the vet science CDE on the national level and for Georgia. It's just really good. I've used it for different labs, for everything. And then when we went virtual this last year, it was so nice to be able to pull PowerPoints just from that, or to pull simple labs that the kids could use. So I thought I'd share that if you haven't checked out the new curriculum that they put out, check it out. 150 bucks, you can't beat it. So I'll send out the link for it too in the chat. That's all I really have.
Do y'all have any questions for Cecily? She just posted the link to that in the chat. Can you give us just kind of a little bit more detail about what they do in that curriculum? Yeah,
so I mean, it's like 30 something sections or along those lines, I guess. Any standard that we have for Georgia is covered in it, but also some of the animal science standards are covered in it. I mean, it's overwhelming when you first get it, and I still haven't like completely mastered like how to teach it all. And like I said, there's no way that anyone could teach everything through one school year, and so that's why I have been able to pull for other classes as well. But it does, like, I enjoy it. Like, I like that it has the PowerPoints, and so you can update it with what you want to include for your PowerPoints. It has the guided notes, has the teacher notes, it has anything and everything you'd need. And then at the beginning of every section, it has like a list of materials that you'll need, so you can plan ahead of like what you'll need to buy to make sure that your kids are good. It's just, I mean, I've really enjoyed using it, so.
All right, thanks, Cecily. I don't see any questions in the chat. I know I'm going to go to share one thing that I know that Cecily does is it's pretty cool, is learning how to give shots. She uses like fruit and other things and teaches them how to give a shot, because probably they don't want you working on somebody's cat in the classroom. So they use oranges or other types of fruits and those type of things to practice those IM and sub-Q shots too. So I thought that was pretty cool when I talked with her about that. Now I'm going to call on Nancy Sale. She's willing to share some things, and I'm going to turn that over to her. Ms. Sale.
Hey, morning. Sorry, I was muted. I just shot an email to Walt with the files that I use for my animal health. I don't teach vet science, but I do teach animal science, biotechnology, as well as the animal production and management. And one of my favorite units to teach is the animal health unit. And we go through everything from pathogens and what are the 5 major types of pathogens. We go through pathogen transmission, and then we also go through parasite and parasite control. So there are several labs that I use. Most of the stuff that I got came from PEER, which is the Partnership for Environmental Education and Rural Health program, hosted by Texas A&M University College of Vet Medicine and Biomedical Sciences. Their website is really awesome. I just sent the link to that website to Walt, and so you should be able to see a link to it. But I also sent a link to him with all of my files that I use for my entire animal health unit. So everything that I use is on there. One of my favorite things that I do, and I'm going to try and share my screen to show you the lab that I use with my students that seems to stick out the most with them, is the disease transmission lab. So I'm going to, Walt, do we have sharing privileges?
We do, and y'all gonna have to bear with us. This is our first rodeo, so let's see. Did you request to share your screen? Down at the bottom, there's a little icon that says share screen.
Yeah, it said you have to give me permission.
Okay.
Anyway, to kind of, while we're getting this worked out, what I generally do is start with pathogens and pathogen transmission. So there is a PowerPoint that is in the file that I shared with Walt that they put together, and then I've created like a guided notes PowerPoint to go with it as well. And so I usually print that out, and then the students kind of follow along and fill in the blanks as we cover that. One of the things that I love about this PEER curriculum is that they have formative assessments that are built into the PowerPoints, and so it kind of gives the students brain breaks, but also gives them a time to kind of, it's like 4 or 5 questions just over the main ideas of what those, what we covered in the previous slides. It is a lot of information, but it seems to be one of the units that my students really like the best. So once we cover pathogens, then we'll do the pathogens transmission lab, which is pretty easy to do.
So I've got what you shared with me up. I can't let you share your screen, but I can share mine.
Okay.
So which of those files were you talking about, the parasite?
No, if you'll go to the infectious disease spread activity teacher.
This one? Oh, this one?
Yes. And then if in a second, if you'll open up the other one. So what you see there is all of the information for you to how to set up that lab. Now I do mine a little bit differently. Like it's going to, basically what you're going to do is I have beakers in my classroom. If you don't have beakers, that's fine. Go get you some clear plastic cups from the grocery store. And however many students you have in your classroom, you're going to set out cups for that. And if I have 20 students, 19 of those cups are going to get water in the cup to a specific level, whatever you decide to set. One of the cups is going to have a base mixed in with it. Now, if you don't have access to chemicals or you're not friends with your chemistry teacher at your high school, then it'll tell you how to mix up that stuff if you don't have any kind of access to pH indicators or anything like that. So it lets you do it from scratch. I kind of cheat a little bit because I am friends with the chemistry teacher. So one of those cups will have a base in it. So basically I set the lab up to where I kind of talk with the students and give them the scenario that we are a group of cattle that are in a feedlot, and that new cattle are coming in to that feedlot. We really don't know what the background of those cattle are, but what I'm trying to show them is how quickly disease can spread through a population of animals or a herd of animals. And so, while if you'll go back to the infectious disease student right above it, the file above it. So this is what the students are going to get. So what I'll do is I'll tell them that I need 2 volunteers, and usually kids will raise their hand pretty quick, and I pretend to give them a shot in the arm, and I put Band-Aids on them so we can remember who got the vaccination. And then I tell them to go out, because I have a classroom and then I have a lab. I tell them to go out to the lab, and everybody needs to get a cup, and the cups are just numbered 1 through however many students we have in the classroom. Walt, if you'll scroll back up. What we do is I get them to go ahead and write down that first table, the total number of students, which would be cups in this situation, and how many students are infected at the start. So I generally do 1 infected student at the start. And then what those students are going to do is they're going to take their cup and they're going to find another student and pour all the liquid from one cup into the other cup, and then pour half the liquid back into their cup. And then they need to write down, and I just get them to jot down at the top, the number of the cup of the person that's traded with. And I explain to them that trading would be anytime they come in contact with body fluids or in the area of another cow that's in our herd. So that could be the water trough, it could be the feed trough, it could just be through fence to fence contact, however they come in contact with another animal. And so I tell them to trade a minimum of 5 times. Where it says number of vaccinated students, that's going to be 2, and then what we'll do is we'll let the lab go. So that takes about 5 minutes for them to get all of their trading or mingling to happen. And then I usually take them to a bigger portion of my lab, and I just tell them to line up. It doesn't have to be in any kind of order, just line up. And then my 2 students that are wearing the Band-Aids that I vaccinated at the beginning of the lab, I go in and I add acetic acid to their cups, which is basically going to negate the base that was in the one student's cup in the beginning. And then I use the pH indicator, and I go through and I put pH indicator into every single person's cup. And the pH indicator, if it turns pink, then that means they came in contact with the infected cow, and they now are carrying the disease as well. So once I start putting that pH indicator in, and the reason I use beakers or clear cups is because they can see real quickly how many people got infected from coming in contact with that one infected person, even though, or sorry, one infected cow, even though that infected cow was asymptomatic, not showing any kind of signs of being sick. And so we'll go through, and then they record. If you look at the lab table that's there projected, it says the total number of students now infected. And so we'll write that number down, and then we usually go back into my classroom and we try to sit down and to figure out who was infected initially, because they don't know who at that point is infected. So we do what is the equivalent of contact tracing to go back through and try and figure out, see if we can figure out who infected mostly the entire herd at that point. And that usually exhausts their brains to try and figure out that contact tracing. And then we'll go through and I eventually tell them if they got it right or wrong, whether or not they figured out the correct infected person. And then we go through and they'll work through, you can see the rest of that worksheet that's there, how those diseases would be spread in the real world, what are some similarities to the lab that we did, what would be differences to the lab that we do. We look at, why everyone in a family might not get a cold every time you get a cold, or why you may not pass on a disease every time. And then if you'll scroll on down, while it shows them, and they kind of process like, how easily is it for a disease to be transmitted based on the number of animals that are in a population. And so they easily know that your dog at home, if it's the only dog and does not come in contact with the other dogs, that it should have the least likely to have a disease transmitted. And then a cave full of bats would be the most likely to have disease transmitted. And then we talk about how transmission of disease can be prevented, which they would have already known about, BKI, which is break the cycle, quarantining an animal. We talk about if we bring new animals into a herd and we don't know what the background of those animals are, and if they've had any infectious diseases or vaccinations, anything like that, how we need to quarantine them for a specific period before we release them into the larger herd, which would be break the cycle. We can kill the infectious agent if there is antibiotics or antivirals or anything that could kill that infectious disease, and then increase the host immunity, whether it's through proper nutrition, vaccinations, anything like that. And then we just kind of go through that. At the end of this year, when I asked my students to do the survey of what stood out most to them during their time in animal science, this is the one lab that they said just stuck in their brain. And so they really liked it. All of that information's there, all of the PowerPoints, the notes are there in the file that I gave y'all. There's tons of stuff there. They have the same thing for parasites. Once I finish up pathogens, I do parasites. And we talk about ecto and endoparasites, and then there's some labs that go into that, and also there's some labs where you could do some fecal samples and get some microscope work in and teach them how to look for symptoms of internal parasites through a fecal sample. So all of that's there. You can apply it to large animal or small animal. And the kids really seem to like it because it's relevant and hands-on.
Well, that was awesome. I think there's couldn't be a lesson that's more pertinent to what we have going on today. I might actually use this one in my basic ag science class because, it's really relevant and it's really kind of in their minds and it's the forefront of everybody right now in this country. So that's awesome.
Well, Rebecca Glennie had a question. It says, this sounds like a great activity, trying to visualize what is the average class size you do with this? Would you make adjustments for a larger or smaller class?
Usually my class size is somewhere, depending on the period, between 20 to 30 or 28 students. If I had a smaller class, you can adjust the amount of time or the number of times that they trade liquid or mingle with someone else or come in contact with someone else. And that would kind of control how much it spreads through the population. So if I had a smaller class, I probably wouldn't have to do as much mingling or contact where they're swapping the liquids. If I had a larger class, then I probably would increase the number of times so that they could see how it spreads through a population.
Are there any more questions?
I did go back and kind of look at that website that I got it from, because it's been a couple of years since I went and retrieved it from there. And it looks like they've really increased the amount of curriculum that's there. And I know that Walt shared the link to that in the chat box. So if you wanted to look at those, they don't just have vet science stuff on there. They have any kind of agri-science stuff that's on there as well. So just because you don't teach vet science, don't think that they don't have something to offer. The stuff, like Cecily said earlier, they've got the PowerPoints are there for you. All the labs are there for you. Any worksheet that they have for you also has like an answer key. And it's not just animal health stuff. Like, they have awesome animal nutrition stuff there as well. So.
All right, and Casey Elias also said, what did you say that you used to get the watercolor to change?
I use a pH indicator, and if y'all give me 1 second, I can get it off of my bookcase and tell you what it is.
While she's doing that, couple of reminders. One, I see a few people that have joined are doing that. Please post your first and last name along with your school in the chat so we can get a record of your attendance. And also, I'm going to turn over to another individual here in just a second. When we failed to mention this at the beginning, but Nancy reminded me of this with her sharing of her Google Drive. We have an Ag Teacher Share Drive. Most of you are probably familiar with it. Some of you may not be, but it's a great resource that teachers in Georgia share files that they use in their classroom. I'm going to put this file in under the vet science folder, and so that everybody will be able to access that too. So it's a great resource, and I think Marcus or Katrina would be able to tell you how to get in that, because it's been so long since I joined it, I don't remember how.
Yeah, when we send out the email with all the different resources, we'll put those instructions on how to join the Google Share Drive there as well. Okay,
so what I use for my base is a 0.10 molar sodium hydroxide, NaOH. I got it from the chemistry teacher, and then I'm probably going to murder this name. It's kind of like trying to read the Bible in front of church. Phenylethylamine is the pH indicator. Just go ask your chemistry teacher. She can tell you, he can tell you what you tell them what you're doing, and they can tell you what you need. It just measures the amount of base in there. So what I use for my vaccinations that I give the students before I put the pH indicator in came out of another lab that I had. It's just acetic acid. Y'all, that's vinegar. So, I mean, don't feel like, just go get you some white vinegar from the grocery store and you can use that. And like I said, the lab that's in the file that I shared, they tell you how to mix up all of that stuff if you don't have access to any of these other things. So, like, they'll tell you how to mix up baking soda to make it strong enough to serve as a base for the lab. So.
Yeah, and then Kevin Surratt and Bailey Hicks also both had some questions or pointers or comments about the pH indicators at Walmart for the pool chemicals. And maybe there's a way to incorporate some of the pool water testing stuff into this.
Yes. So Bailey, you're exactly right. Basically, all this does is if they have a base, any kind of, if the pH is high in their liquid, then it's going to turn it bright pink. So it does the exact same thing.
Using the phenethylamine is the neat visual cue, because that's when it turns pink. They can see that. Those little test indicators are fine if you have to, but that little test strip turning a certain color is not near as visually appealing as that clear water turning pink.
Yeah, that's the part that really gets some, is the, ew, you're infected, you're nasty, type of, we get a lot of that.
Any more questions? All right. Well, that was awesome. Thank you very much, Nancy.
You're
That's great.
welcome.
Okay. At this time, we're going to open up the floor. Please, anyone feel free to share anything they do in a vet science or any vet science area of animal science that they might teach, even if it's something real simple. If you can send me a file, I'll share the screen. We're still trying to figure out how to let each of you share screens, but you can unmute yourself and feel free to share. Okay, we've got a prompt for a question, and I'll just open that. That's a good question, Mr. Bartlett. If anybody would be willing to share maybe how they prepare for the vet science CDE. It's kind of a newer CDE in our state, as they've been doing it on the national level for a while. If anyone would be willing to maybe to share something they do for preparing their team for the vet science CDE.
This is Kevin Surratt. Here's something that in judging vet science CDE, something that's real hard for a judge to get around when it comes to practicums. If kids come in there and they can use that rubric, if they can talk that rubric as they do their practicums, it's hard to cut them points. If they're showing you and telling you exactly what they're doing and they're using that rubric, I've seen them do it word for word. They've got it memorized. It's almost impossible to cut points from the kids. So that's something that I try to use with mine.
Yes, sir. Rubrics are very, very important when you're preparing for CDEs. That's something that you each need to do is go to the website, the Georgia Ag website, and pull that information down and really study that and go over that with your students. That's a good point. Thank you, sir. Anybody else have a good pointer? Okay.
Ginger made a comment about how there's a lot of the materials that you can get, like cat bags or muzzles or whatever. You can find those on Amazon at a pretty reasonable price. And then Pauline Benton said that videos from Plow have been very helpful for her. So those are two comments from the chat. Is there anyone that can, oh, go ahead.
Hey, this is Melissa Webb. With kind of all the uncertainty of digital learning versus in-school instruction and things like that, whenever my vet science class, whenever I flipped it to digital instruction, something that I found to be very, very useful was, and I don't know if it's an add-on, if it's a website or whatever it is, but it's called Flipgrid. And it allows students to be able to make short 10-minute videos, and they like put them on a grid. So you can kind of think of it as kind of like a Pinterest sort of thing. But I would demonstrate how do you do appropriate restraints, and then kids at home, if they had their own pet, they could use that, or they could use, you know, brother or sister's stuffed animal that they had, and I would give them these vet science rubrics, and they would practice the different restraints. They would record it through a Flipgrid, and then all the other students could view it. If the teacher set that up for them to be able to see that response, then students could see it, and then they could critique each other on their restraining techniques and stuff like that. And I found that to be very useful. That I don't know if it's a website or if it's an add-on through Google or what it is. Our district IT guy found it and sent it to us, but I found it very, very useful. But that was called Flipgrid.
Yeah, Flipgrid's pretty handy. We've used it here, and I think that's a big resource for moving forward with this stuff. Somebody asked about Plow. Mac Ross asked, what is Plow? I wanted to see if I could share it with somebody. I know that Pauline Benton just explained it. It is from One Less Thing, but is there anyone that can speak on Plow currently?
Plow is a subscription that you can get through one last thing. I think it's $99 a year, or that's what it was. And there are all sorts of videos that can help with instructional materials, to provide instructional materials, to help students prepare for practical portions of CDEs, etc.
There you go. A link was just shared in the chat for a link to Plow. Again, that is one less thing. You know, Alicia Tomlinson and Brian Tomlinson, they've always been great to the profession. They have a lot of quality stuff, not only for vet science, but for other classroom stuff as well. There was another comment. Let me see if I can scroll up.
Yeah, it's $250 now, not $99.
Yeah, $250.
But they've added a ton of more videos, so there's a lot more. It's not just vet. There's stuff like for land judging and all different kind of areas. It's awesome.
Yeah, Ginger also said that their extension agent comes in and serves as a judge for after-school practice. They set up stations for rotations. So the extra face judging, listening thing, you know, that obviously helps. And so, you know, guest speakers are always a thing. I know that Cecily and I have talked about if we're going virtual at any point this next school year, you know, everybody's living in a time of unknown right now, that we'll probably go around and try to capture videos of different places, different professions, and veterinary science would be one of those things. And so I think that we'd be doing some of that stuff. Rachel just had a question to ask if anyone used ICEV, and if so, was it worth it? Can anyone weigh in there?
I haven't used it for vet, but we did use it. We had like a trial for a semester that we did. We used it for like animal science, mostly like for livestock judging and things like that. A lot of their videos are really old. Some of the materials out of date, but I mean, it still was a lot of good information and would be very helpful during, you know, if you're having to do virtual learning. The other advantage, and we've proposed our school using it in the future, is there's certifications that your students can get. Our school system right now is they want everyone in career tech to have a certification when they graduate. And so there's not a lot of certifications for ag that are offered, you know, just in general. So ICEV has a lot of different certifications.
All right, good deal. Walt, we've got Lynn Cook that would like to share something that she shared the resource with me. I'll send it out. And then after Miss Cook, we've got Mary's iPhone. I'm not certain who that is. But anyway, Miss Cook, if you would go ahead and share.
Yeah, what I sent to you, and you're welcome to share it up on the screen if you want to, but is a lesson plan that I did for suturing. And my students really enjoy that lesson, and it's usually one that I save until close to the end of the school year. And the reason that I like it close to the end of the school year is it's self-driven. And basically what I do is I give them an introductory lesson, usually on parturition, but it didn't have to be. And then we lead into, well, what is a C-section? And then regardless of whether it's a C-section or something's wrong, you have to then have some way to suture. And it's cheap. It's a cheap little lesson. You can buy suture and needles for almost nothing. You can buy leftover odds and ends, suture and line like catgut and nylons. And what I make them do is I have our school nutrition program supplies us with oranges, and they have to cut a certain length. I think it's supposed to be 2 inches of a cut in their orange, and then they have to do each one of the different sutures. And the first thing that they have to accomplish before they can get to that is to actually tie a surgeon's knot, and it takes them a while to perfect that. And then we go into the simple interrupted stitching and then they progress on to like mattress stitching and some of the others. So it's a good lesson. You can go as in depth or as shallow as you want to. And basically every day, once you show them the PowerPoint and get them to where they can actually tie the surgeon's knot, then it's just a matter of them going and suturing it up, bringing it back to you for some feedback, and then going back and practicing again. And then when we practiced all that we want to, all that I've assigned them, whether it's 2 or 3 times, whether it's you have to do this suturing in catgut, and this suturing in nylon, and this suturing in some other material, then at that point in time they get a new, the best is a banana, but bananas have been in short. You can't hardly get those. Bananas are the best because and I call it their test banana, because then you don't want them double sticking an animal. In other words, when they put in the suture, it's supposed to go in once and then back up out once. And when they double stick that animal, which would be the banana, it leaves a bruise, so you can count off points for it. But then they get their test fruit, whatever it happens, whatever I can get. And at that point in time, they have 1 class period to do all of the stitches, and they only get 1 chance. And then I give them grades on their practice stuff, their practice orange, and then on their test also, so that it kind of balances out if they're not real good at sewing and suturing, but they really tried. I also make it to where they have to partner up. And their partner, they switch back and forth being the doctor and the nurse, so that the nurse holds the fruit and gives them some feedback. And you can see my rubric there. They have to give each other feedback on their rubric, and that gives me another means of kind of grading them for what they're doing. But it's a real fun lesson. They love it, and some of them are really good, because when you tell them that, the smaller and the more even they are, the less scarring that you get. And some of them actually could be pretty good surgeons by the time that they get through. If you run out, I found that if you run out of suturing material and you don't have any catgut or anything, dental floss works like a charm. So you can get that almost free.
Thank you, Ms. Cook. I'm personally fresh out of catgut. That was good. That was really, really good. Any questions for Ms. Cook?
Would you mind sending us also your rubric and your PowerPoint?
Yes, sir. I will as soon as we quit here in just a minute.
Thank you. Thank you.
Ms. Cook, Michael also said that fishing line works well as well.
Oh yeah, it makes a good nylon, but woo, get ready for, you better not have a very high test line, because boy, it's gonna be hard to tie that surgeon's knot and to keep it tied. Because when my students get through, they have to pluck at it 3 times. If the surgeon's knot comes apart, that means the animal could lick it apart.
Huh. Good to know. That was good. All right. If there's no more questions for Ms. Cook, I'd like to switch it off to Meredith. Thank you, Ms. Cook. That was good.
I'm starting a new program at the STEM Academy, and we were supposed to be teaching vet science this year. So I ordered some things. I haven't got to use them yet in preparation. And one thing that's off Amazon is like this fake skin. And you can just search like suture kits and all kinds of, some of them are like $11 and some of them are like $30-something. Some of them come with like the instruments, and the ones I got just have the skin, and then it has like the suture needles, and everything is already like pre-packaged. And then it also has this little kit here. I don't know if y'all can see that, for you to practice with. So that was something that I had ordered that I was hoping I will get to use that we come back to school. But this has like all different kinds of cuts on it. But like everybody else was saying, with the fruit, you can also use a chicken leg, which is fairly cheap, and it's more, I guess, kind of lifelike, but you can use that with the injections, like for IM and for sub-Q. And suturing, you can suture up the chicken leg as well. And then I also ordered, and I don't have them here, they're at the other school. If you'll just Google or on Amazon, Spirit, like the horse video Spirit painting kit. And it comes with like a horse, a white horse, and then you paint. It has different colors. Or, and I was gonna get my kids to paint like one side the directional terminology to practice that, and then you can do the other side if you want to do like anatomy stuff on the other side, or you can do them both, directional terminology. It depends on which one you get. Some of them, one of them is like a family of 5 horses, and so it has like 4 big ones and a small one, and that's like $19. And then there's one, I got it pulled up right now on Amazon. I can send this link, I guess, to Walt, right? To Amazon. And
yes, you can.
You can just post it in the chat too if you want to.
okay, I'll do that. And so then one of them is just like an individual horse, and it has 3 different colors, and that one's for $13. And then there's also one, I guess there's different, I've never watched Spirit, but there's different animals. One of the animals is only $9. Boomerang, whoever that is, he only costs $9. But the Spirit costs $13. I guess your supply and demand may be higher there. And then there's also a Melissa and Doug horse figurine that you can paint too, and that was only $7. It's just a lot smaller. So I planned on using those, and I planned on using the suture kit. And then I also ordered, and I'm a crazy cat lady, so this may not excite many people, but a companion cat that's supposed to be used like for elderly people or dementia patients. And so I'd use that to help us when we talk about cats. And here it is. And it has a thing where you can turn it on, and it like moves around. Let me see if I can find the little pouch to turn it on. There it is. And so it like moves around and makes noise. And so I was going to use this in my vet science class when I talk about restraints and all that good stuff. But I feel like I only ordered one. I feel like my kids are probably going to fight over it once they figure out. You see it like moving its paw. It's like purring right now. I don't know if y'all can hear it.
Oh, we can hear it, Meredith.
So, since I'm a crazy cat person, they won't let me have a real cat at school. I guess this would be the next best thing. But those were just some products that I had ordered. I don't really have anything to share on whether or not they work yet because I hadn't tried them out. But if you're interested, I'll send the links. And then I ordered several of the Melissa and Doug animals. Oh, there it goes meowing. Let me see if I can flip my camera. Like there they are, several of the different ones for us to practice with in my vet science class over here. But that was all I had. I'll send the links to Walt in the, or I'll post them in the chat box. So.
Do both. Thank you.
Yeah, here's this cat. It's like laid over playing now. So I think we're gonna have lots of fun with this cat. Hopefully my kids will get to see it. Thanks, y'all.
Meredith, Krista would like for you to talk a little bit about the Texas A&M curriculum, the certification. Can you do that?
That was many years ago when we had Dr. Ferries from Texas A&M. He came to the middle school, and that's where I got the chicken leg thing, because we did that when he came. Now, it's my understanding that not long after he came and did that workshop that he left Texas A&M. And they do, I've seen it, I think Krista for her to send out to everybody. If you look up TAMVMU, I believe is what it is, the Veterinary Medicine University, that they have a bunch of virtual stuff that they've been doing, and they've been doing some virtual workshops and sharing like some virtual materials. And I sent a thing to Krista about the workshop, I believe, and she shared it with everybody on the listserv. And they do offer a certification. At my school, we didn't go through that process. So we didn't, I guess, buy into the curriculum. There's a curriculum that they offer, kind of like Cornell, and it has some textbooks and stuff. But my system opted not to purchase that at the time. And I know that somebody had talked about a certification. So if you look into the Texas A&M, they may offer a certification and a test for credentialing or whatever that you're needing for your school. But my county just opted after we did that not to purchase that curriculum. So unfortunately, I don't have a lot to share about it. Although Dr. Ferries, he was really cool and he shared a bunch of cool stuff. And to my knowledge, you can contact them and somebody will come do a workshop. Texas A&M paid for him to come do that workshop for us when he came to the middle school.
Yeah, I met with them last week via Zoom, and because I saw what they had on Facebook, and you know, our system is very much wanting our kids to be certified in something. And so they're putting together kind of like what it would cost to come out to Georgia to do, if people are interested. I kind of sent that out to Krista to see if that's a possibility, but hadn't heard back. But they're very open to coming out and doing a training with their teachers. I told them it would probably be like next summer because with COVID and traveling and all of that. But they're very willing. They're going to work up a price of what it would cost to travel out here, what that cost would be like if you had 20 teachers attend. So if anybody's interested in that, send me your email address. I'll put you on a list. And as soon as I, you know, get that information back to them. And the other question I did ask them was how much the curriculum is, because I'm sure that's a deciding factor for schools as well. But my system is very interested in me pursuing that. They want our kids to be certified in something when they graduate from our program. So just email me at pauline.benton@cherokee.k12.ga.us if you want to be on a list to find out more information about that. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't overstepping anybody at the state office who might be trying to pursue that. It's the reason I sent it to Krista initially first.
Thank you, Meredith and Pauline. That was good stuff. In the chat, Ashley Rivers said that Dollar Tree has some dog cutouts that work well, and you can order those online in bulk. And then you had Dixie McCarty that shared a picture of an activity that they did that was very similar to one of the in-person breakout sessions that we had at Midwinter, where they painted a picture, or where they painted the skeletal structure of a horse on a horse. So there's that. Kathy Wiesner just said we do a gummy bear dissection lesson for the directional terminology. I found it on the NAAE Communities website. When we are done, students get to eat the gummy bears. So that's always a good thing too.
Gummy thing is from the Cornell curriculum. When Melissa was talking about the Cornell thing earlier, and so that's the old stuff from Cornell is posted on the NAAE website. But that's some of the kind of stuff that's on the Cornell curriculum that Melissa was talking about.
Good stuff. Thank you, Meredith. All right. Is there anyone else that would like to share or elaborate on something or ask questions for clarification? All right, I was talking to Walt earlier, and these professional development sessions, obviously we would prefer to be in person and doing some cool stuff. I mean, you know, I just think there's a lot of benefit to being together, of course, as we all do. But these are largely, these at a distance virtual professional development sessions are largely a success based off of the participation. And I thought there was a lot of participation in this session. A lot of good stuff that was shared, and so I'd like to thank everybody that shared and had questions Walt, you got anything to say?
I just, again, want to echo that appreciate everybody sharing. I think it was some good stuff. I appreciate you bearing with our technical difficulties we had a little bit along the way.